You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast.
Being on The Apprentice was an amazing opportunity and a fantastic experience. Every time I'd go back to Ghana, I'd see loads of young, skilled, competent young graduates who were out of employment. For me, I was like, there must be something we can do. There must be a way we can get these young graduates into employment or just get them connecting with opportunities that are so available around the world. What we've seen is that these young individuals on the continent are as competent, as capable as we knew they would be. Whereas remotely, we integrate our individuals into your teams. I believe Africa is that next place that can really help to take organizations around the world to another level.
Stay tuned as we bring you inspiring people who are unlocking Africa's economic potential. You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast with your host, Tessa Adamu.
Welcome to the Unlocking Africa podcast, where we find inspirational people who are doing inspirational things to unlock Africa's economic potential. Today, we have another special guest. We have Samuel Brooksworth, who is founder and chief executive of Remoteli, which is a tech-led on-demand staffing organization that supports organizations around the world to grow their team with talented and ambitious graduates based in Africa. Welcome to the podcast, Samuel. How are you?
I'm good, Tessa. How are you?
I'm good. So where are you today? London or Accra?
Currently in London at the moment. I'll be back in Accra in a few weeks, but I'm in London at the moment.
Fantastic. I bet you're looking forward to going back.
Yeah, you know, it's always nice to go back and get some sun. It's because the family are in London. It's always nice being here.
I guess it's good to have the opportunity or luxury to go between both places.
Exactly. Obviously, Accra will always be home, heritage-wise, and London's where the family are, so it's nice to constantly go back and forth.
Brilliant. So I'm not sure if you've listened to the podcast before, so I usually like to start from the beginning. So I was hoping you could introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about Samuel Brooksworth.
Sure. So my name's Samuel Brooksworth, born and bred in Southeast London. Lived there till about the age of 11, where I moved to Bury, Greater Manchester, and was pretty much raised up north. So went to high school up north, college up north, then went to university in Sheffield, and then came back down to London, where I started my career in sales. So pretty much worked in sales for the majority of my career, in fact, all of my career, where I worked my way up in different organizations, which was a blessing because I learned so much through sales and gained so many opportunities, so many blessings to be able to progress in my career and to achieve so much through the organizations I worked in. In 2016, went on to BBC's The Apprentice after my wife done the application for me. That was a great opportunity onto that show and learned so much. It was a fantastic process, met so many great people. It opened so many fantastic doors. And after that, that's when I then went into starting an organization called Build and Master, which was an accelerator program just to help individuals to understand how to grow their businesses. And then after that, pretty much went into pandemic times remotely. So ended up setting this up through the pandemic and everything that was happening, saw an opportunity, saw a way in which we could support potentially millions of graduates across the continent in regards to employment, got that set up. And here we are today.
Fantastic. So you give us a great insight into your background, working in sales, worked your way up in many organizations, and also appeared on the BBC Apprentice, which is something that I did not know. So how was that experience? And maybe you can tell us in terms of what you learned from the whole process or the experience, getting the opportunity to be in contact with so many influential business leaders.
Yeah, being on The Apprentice was it was an amazing opportunity and a fantastic experience. I never used to watch the show prior to going onto the show. My wife was actually the one who got me onto the show and then pushed me to go onto it because at the time I had a business idea that I really wanted to get out there. And she was like, listen, if you want to get something out there, you need to be a bit more credible in regards to people knowing who you are and wanting to work with you and trust you. And this is a great platform in order for you to do so people can see your character and see what you're about. And being the kind of individual where I'm not an individual who likes to be out there. So I was completely against the idea, but she's very persuasive. She did the application and said, I'll only submit it if you really want me to. So I was like, I'll just go for it. And luckily, got through the different stages of interview process. I think it was about 4 or 5 interview stages. It's really long and tedious process. But once I got onto the show, it was probably one of the best experiences of my life, meeting all these different, unique individuals and characters. The process was genuinely extremely stressful. Luckily, I really like stress and pressure, so I liked going through the processes and the different tasks. A lot of people aren't aware you're given options of what you can and can't do on the show, which is why people end up coming across at times extraordinarily silly.
Yes.
During the filming of the show. But it was a really good process. Really enjoyed it. Really liked me and No Sugar, Karen Claude. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time on the show.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So would you say the experience played a part in you coming up with the idea for Remotely or not?
No, not really. I'd say, if anything, the experience really helped in regards to the people that I was able to connect with, in regards to the platform it gave me, regarding people knowing me, and giving a lot more credibility to anything that I set up after I appeared on the show. So once I set up, Build a Master, for example, a lot of people came to our events and wanted to understand how to set up businesses from a perspective of finance, law, marketing, and business strategy. That was the accelerator we set up before Remotely. Then obviously once we set up Remotely, having connected with so many business owners and having worked in sales for a long period of time, it was a lot easier to connect with people and for people to trust me, because they knew that whatever I was setting up would be credible through their knowledge of me and through having worked with me or having seen me. So it just gave me a platform to really take things to another level.
Brilliant. So if we look at Remotely, can you give us a bit more information in terms of the organisation, the work that you're currently doing in Africa?
Yeah, sure. So Remotely started in 2020. So it was during the pandemic. So at the peaks of the pandemic, I worked at The Guardian as an account director. And during my time there, I loved my time with the organisation. It was great, met loads of fantastic individuals. And through my time there, I worked for a lot of organisations who were really struggling through the impacts of the pandemic in regards to growing their organisations and expanding their teams, and seeing the impacts that the pandemic was having on these organisations. It really got me thinking in regards to what I could do during that period of time to support these organisations. Likewise, I'm a Ghanaian, and every year during Christmas, my wife and I would go back and forth to Ghana just to relax and chill. And every time I'd go back to Ghana, I'd see loads of young, overly skilled, competent young graduates who were out of employment. And for me, I was like, there must be something we can do. There must be a way we can get these young graduates into employment, or just get them connecting with opportunities that are so available around the world. And then came back to the UK, that eureka moment. Why not marry these two ideas? Why not get these overly skilled and competent young graduates working remotely for organizations around the world? And it's through that I reached out to a few individuals who I knew, helped get this business set up, got things off the ground, connected with organizations we knew, brought on board a really, really competent team. Our sales director, Simon, operations director, Milady, head of customer experience, Doreen. We have Eugene, head of client partnerships. We have Senna, we have Mavis. We have so many young individuals in Ghana who we brought on board, or Mata, our head of people now, who just really wanted to see this business grow. And by the grace of God, over the last 2 going 3 years, it's just grown significantly, because what we've seen is that these young individuals on the continent are as competent, as capable as we knew they would be in regards to supporting these organizations around the world. And when we say supporting these organizations, what they do is that they sit within these organizations in whatever aspects or whatever areas organizations need. So, for example, we have organizations in the UK, legal firms, we have finance organizations, whatever sector, different industries it may be, that require assistance, that require a workforce. But during the pandemic and afterwards, they couldn't afford to grow their teams at the speed and at the rate as which they were doing before. So what a lot of organizations were doing were outsourcing from India or Eastern Europe. But some of the key components that were missing were the cultural aspects of integrating teams in the UK that had the same cultural affinities. The time zones, especially when you work with teams in India, weren't as great. Whereas the advantages of working with young people from Ghana initially, the time zones align, the cultures align in regards to cultural affinity because of the colonial past and being a part of the Commonwealth. And we found that the young people in Ghana were really competent and were able to become a part of these teams. So growing the business that way, finding individuals in Ghana who were able to fit into organizations from a financial aspect, software development, personal assistance, recruitment assistance, whatever elements or aspects these may be, they really helped to grow these organizations around the world really quickly. And through that, we ended up winning Global Startup of the Year at the Startup Awards National Series UK last year. And we've just gone from strength to strength since then.
Brilliant. So you mentioned Remoteli was launched in 2020, yeah?
That's good, yeah.
And I guess the concept came about as you saw a need to address some of the employment gaps for graduates in Ghana, in Africa. So with that in mind, what would you say is the mission of Remoteli and how does it differ from, say, your traditional staffing organizations?
Yeah. So the mission of Remoteli is to to get 1 million plus individuals on the continent, connect 1 million plus individuals on the continent of Africa with working opportunities around the world. And when we look at Africa, Africa's the fastest growing continent on the world, the youngest continent on the world, but the unemployment rates are insane.
Yes.
And purely because we're not getting the job openings in the continent that are in line with the individuals who are graduating and the variety of courses they're graduating from. The majority of roles aren't in line with these, and a majority of the opportunities that are available are outside of Africa. So it required a vehicle or a platform to be able to connect these young graduates with these opportunities internationally. And obviously the pandemic opened the door where a lot of international organizations saw that they didn't need to build their teams directly in the countries they were specifically in an office space, that they could grow their teams internationally, diversify their teams internationally, get different lines of thoughts in their organization, reduce their overhead costs, but increase in the level of work being done. So Remoteli came about just at the right time. So that's the mission of Remoteli, and that's what we're there to do. And in regards to the differences between our organization and our competitors, we have two groups of competitors. So let's look at the typical freelancer organizations. So we have organizations such as Fiverr, Per Hour, to some aspect, Andela, where you can go and freelance staff members from these platforms. Now, they're amazing platforms because what you can do is you go onto these organizations, you can freelance people for periods of time. But what we're finding, the reason Remoteli differs from these platforms is that not many organizations want to hire freelancers for just set periods of time, because then you find that when these freelancers join your organization, they don't particularly want to fit into your organizational culture or be a part of your team. They're just there to do a specific job within a specific time frame and then leave. So we tend to find that in those instances, the quality of work isn't always that great. They don't always integrate into the teams as well. They don't really care about the overall arching mission or vision of the business. They're just there to do a job. Whereas with Remoteli, we integrate our individuals into your teams. So we look after the financial aspects in regards to the employees' pay, their equipment, all the overhead costs, them being the office space. So we look after all that for you, but then that individual becomes a part of your core team, but pretty much sat in our office in Africa. So taking away all these other aspects, organizations find that this is it's more cost effective but a better solution for them, because these individuals end up becoming a core part of their team. They understand the overarching visions and missions of the organization. They want to be a part of the organization growing, but they just sat in our office space in Africa. So that's where we differ in regards to those kind of organizations. And then in regards to traditional, in quote, staffing / outsourcing organizations, the differences are we focus primarily on organizational culture and personality matching. So we don't just place individuals into organizations purely based off their competence and their skills. We're developing and building AI tools that enable us to monitor and train these individuals from our talent pool. And then on the other side, match them with organizations that are in line with the culture and the personalities of the organizations they're growing. And this is a key aspect for the organizations we work with, because they don't just want to hire anybody. They need people who will grow as a part of their business and understand. And culture is a key part of growing any business.
Yes.
Because we've got that aspect right. That's what's seen us grow so quickly in such a short period of time.
Fantastic. So you've talked us through the value that Remoteli adds and some of the specific challenges that you address. So can you talk us or walk us through, say, the process of hiring and onboarding a remote team through Remoteli?
Yeah, so the process is actually really quick and simple. So all organizations do is go onto our website, they see the packages or the services that they require, and they sign up. Once they sign up to the services, they can sign up for 1, 10, 20, however many individuals they want or they need. And then our platform does the rest. We match the individuals based off what the requirements they're looking for. And then once we've done that, within an hour, these individuals are onboarded into organizations. Onboarding meetings are arranged. And from the moment you sign up within an hour, you can have a team fully integrated into your organization. So it's very quick and very simple.
Brilliant. So the process is quick and simple. So I was wondering, with quite a quick process, how do you go about ensuring the quality of talent provided by Remoteli to your clients?
Yeah, sure. So in regards to the quality, again, because we have a tool that trains and monitors and upskills people on our side, that just ensures that our talent pool is always up to date and being worked on. And then on the ground, we have very, very structured teams, which are made up of team leaders, department heads. We have our people team, we have our operations team. So everything's really, really structured and very organized on the ground. So, and we have buddy systems that just ensure that individuals constantly have buddies and they're watching what each other are doing. And if one person's off, the other person can cover, ensuring no downtime for the organizations they work with. So we've worked in a really, really solid structure over the last 2 years, which has ensured that our quality levels are always high. Constant training, constant upskilling sessions taking place, because learning and development is something that we really focus on within the organization. And we have platforms we've built internally, again, to ensure that that's something that's constantly taking place. So these are aspects and elements that we've integrated in Remoteli to ensure that the quality levels are really high. And again, we're a startup, so we're always learning, always developing, always growing. But to date, we found that organizations that we've worked with tend, in most parts, to be really surprised by the structure, the speed, and the level of quality they receive when working with us.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you mentioned you work from a quality structure with a lot of training and development. So if you look at the training and support that you provide, do you think there's a different need or type of training that is required for, say, African graduates in comparison to, say, graduates in the West, in the UK?
Yes. From a technical or from a competence perspective, no, because the individuals on the ground in Africa, the knowledge is there, they understand things, that they know what to do. For most part, it's just them being granted opportunities. And again, just a lot of soft skills, understanding how to communicate with people, how to integrate into international teams, because again, there are slight nuances in cultural differences in regards to communication and how you come across, how you communicate to different individuals from different organizations in different countries around the world. So these are things that we do train, because again, integrating into a team in the UK is very different to integrating a team in Germany, which is very different to integrating a team in America. So these are things that we need to ensure that we show our teams and train our teams on, just so that from a cultural matching perspective, these individuals feel comfortable working in these teams. And then vice versa, the teams feel comfortable having these individuals work with them. So these are some of the key elements we train on. But apart from that, there's not much other training in regards to retraining them on massive technologies or how to do certain things, because they really do have the knowledge and the content. It's more so them being granted opportunities and us guiding them and showing them how to be the best version of themselves they can be within the organizations they work with.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you mentioned the importance of understanding, say, international culture and context. So with regards to, say, the culture and social impact of Remoteli, What would you say is some of the important cultural or social impact that Remotely is making in connecting graduates from Africa with global job opportunities?
Yeah. So by doing so, we're just allowing individuals on the continent to really gain opportunities that they wouldn't have gained previously, but also getting them trainers or individuals from outside of the continent who are able to give them the opportunities to understand how things operate. And then obviously from a social impact, by you creating more roles, we're in the countries we're in, we pay taxes, so we're helping increase the GDP of every country we're in, bringing in money that wouldn't have been in the country prior. We're increasing or helping to give disposable incomes to a lot of graduates who wouldn't have had that money beforehand to support their families, to support their communities, to get employment, to gain knowledge, to gain experiences. These are some of the social impacts we're looking at. And then from a long-term perspective, our goals are to build or to help to fund a lot of schools in rural areas. And the long-term dream that we have as an organisation is to be able to fund, build and support schools in rural areas, get these kids through education from primary school, secondary school, college, university, and then full circle into Remotely. And that's the long-term goal, because if we're to train from a very young age and get them ready for being able to support organizations and to prime them to get roles from a young age so they know their career paths and they know what they can achieve from a young age. For us, that would be fantastic. So that's what we're working towards long term.
So you touched on a key point there with regards to social impact, which is providing disposable income to graduates. So I was wondering if you could give a bit more detail with regard to how does Remotely ensure that the remote workers receive fair or competitive salaries for the work that they are doing?
Yeah. So Remotely, all the staff members don't work in quote remotely, they work from our office spaces, just to ensure, again, from a quality perspective, to ensure that they're part of core teams, that they're a part of cultures that they feel comfortable with, that they're learning, they're growing, they feel supported. So they work within our office spaces, within the different areas that they are. Well, most of the staff, not all, but a majority of them absolutely love that, because then again, they're part of a vibrant and growing community and culture that they feel as though they wouldn't have had previously. Because working in most organisations on the continent, you don't tend to have the community feel that you do within Remotely. And if you go into our socials and look for a lot of the posts that we have, you'll see that and really get a good understanding of how we've grown and built the organisation. But in regards to from a pay perspective, again, most organisations, let's start from the point of there aren't many roles on the continent in the first place. So a lot of graduates, as we're seeing from the numbers, are massively struggling to get into employment, to get into careers, because there aren't many jobs on the continent in the first place. So what a lot of them, for example, in Ghana would do is they'll do national service, where they're not particularly paid much. And then after national service, they will then look for roles, or many of them will be at home for long periods of time looking for roles. So what we then do is we come in, we offer them salaries that are on average of what they'll be expecting to receive at that level of their education and experience. And in most aspects more, but dependent on their experience, depending on the role they'll be undertaking. And online, there are loads of salary calculators across Ghana to give people real understandings of what their averages are and what people should and can be getting dependent on the sector and the role that they're undertaking. And then from there, they progress from an organisation. Their progression routes are really good from Remotely. So there's lots of opportunities to progress. As we grow, they can grow, the graduates can grow. And that's our aim, to try and get each individual who joins the business to grow and to flourish as much as possible, because the more they grow, the more we grow, the more we grow, the more we can better support organisations around the world. So that's the aim, again, long-term, to try and get as many people to grow and to thrive in an organisation as we grow and thrive as well.
So we've looked at the social impacts and benefits for employees. So if we look at it from the other perspective, what are some of the key benefits that companies experience when working with Remotely?
Yeah. So from a company perspective, the main key benefits are obviously cost. Cost is a huge benefit for them, naturally, because of the exchange rates between the UK and most countries in Africa. Pound is obviously a lot stronger than a lot of most currencies around the world, all currencies around the world, in fact. So we're tending to find that by organisations from the UK, all organisations in America and most parts of Europe where we work are using their currencies, whether it's with India or whether it's in Africa, the cost save aspect is first and foremost. But for most organizations that work with us, time zone is one. Ghana is on GMT. So
Yes.
Ghana and the UK is pretty much the same. So having a team that works in the same time zone as you is essential, and it really helps in regards to organizational operations. It's massive. And then another advantage, again, the cultural aspect, where most of the young people in Ghana have a cultural affinity that is very, very similar to organizations in the UK and America. So having individuals who can fit really well into your teams, that can help your teams grow, who have a similar understanding, who have similar upbringings, is vital. And we're finding organizations absolutely love this. So these are huge aspects. And then again, we provide all the equipment, the office space. We provide all this for organizations. So these are overhead costs that they don't have to outlay. So all they're doing is paying a monthly flat rate subscription to work with individuals from our office space. So for them, it's key, and it's just really simple, really structured to use. So that's the advantage to them.
Fantastic. So it sounds like a win-win situation for both employer and employee. So do you have any success stories of companies that have worked with Remoteli to build their remote teams?
Loads. So again, one of our biggest clients that we have, which is a huge media organization in the UK, when working with them, for example, what we loved seeing was the growth of the individuals. For us, which is the key successes, was always seeing the growth of the individuals that these organizations work with. So seeing the growth of these individuals, seeing them grow in these organizations, and in this one instance where you see individuals who have been able to grow in an organization to the point where they start to take on key elements of the organization's operations, is absolutely massive. And when we're seeing those changes, when we're seeing individuals become so integral to these teams that some organizations actually end up, we have what we call a buyout clause in the contract. So when you're working with individuals, you can either continue to work with them for remotely or do a buyout clause where you can buy them directly into organizations. And we have many organizations which have done that. And we absolutely love that, because not only are these individuals absolutely blowing these companies away, they're creating more opportunities for more individuals, but they're showing how competent and how great staff members from Africa can be. So there are many successes that we've had through this, and hopefully we'll see many more where more individuals, not just in Ghana, but we've recently opened an office in Rwanda as well. And we'll hopefully see more young people in Rwanda and then eventually Kenya and Ethiopia and so forth, doing exactly the same thing and showing there really is talent in Africa and the ability to work with organizations around the world.
So you touched on something key there in terms of the successful experience of using employees in Africa will generate more opportunities for future people entering the labor market in Africa who would consider working within this type of setup. So historically, people have used, I guess, similar methods to strategically move business functions to countries such as India, China, the Philippines, even Eastern Europe. So are we seeing a trend of more companies choosing Africa as a destination for, say, would you describe it as offshoring?
Yeah, I'd like to think that, yes, over time, that this will become more of a trend. We're seeing a lot of investment into Africa right now, whether it's through Google, who have invested $1 billion into an underwater internet line that will increase internet connectivity across West Africa and hopefully across the rest of the continent as time goes on. We're seeing Microsoft, who invested heavily into the continent. We're seeing many big tech companies who are coming onto the continent who are setting up head offices here. We're seeing the increase of startups in Africa and their valuations massively increasing. We're seeing loads of investment into startups across Africa. So we are seeing that as each year goes by, there is this increase in funds, in opportunities in Africa, because a lot of people see Africa as the in-quote last frontier, where Africa is a continent with amazing heritage and history beyond just slavery. There's so much that has happened on the continent before and after. But then what's happened is that there hasn't been the focus on Africa in regards to there being skilled and competent and advanced technologies and individuals who can carry out and deploy a lot of this work internationally. And we're seeing that in Africa being seen as almost at the in-quote last frontier, more opportunities are come to Africa because people are seeing that it's a developing continent, though, again, with the rich heritage and history, it's still a developing continent. And there are things, ideas, concepts, businesses, structures that haven't been done on the continent yet. So in these structures, in these technologies, in these startups, in these organizations coming and building on the continent and doing what hasn't been done on the continent just yet, we're seeing more and more opportunities for people to create changes, for people to gain employment, for people to do a lot more on the continent than has been done previously. So, hopefully we'll see more and more of that over the next decade. And I'm sure there'll be a rise of plenty of unicorns that will arise in regards to organizations and startups that will arise across the continent over the next decade as more and more investment is pumped into startups on the continent.
Thank you. So you touched on seeing huge increase and investments coming into Africa with startups and large organizations, companies setting up in the market. So if you look at when you were setting up, what challenges did you face setting up and scaling remotely?
The challenges were the unknown in regards to organizations working with people in Africa. It was pretty much, at the time we started, really unheard of. Since remotely, there's been loads. We pretty much pioneered this space in regards to outsourcing, staffing. In West Africa, we've seen loads of organizations who have set up after us, which has been fantastic, because then you're seeing more and more individuals get into employment and we're seeing more and more opportunities being created. But one of the massive challenges were that, again, not many people have heard of getting staff from Africa. So it was breaking that stereotype or trying to overcome that objection in people's minds. And for us, initially, it was great because, again, a lot of organizations or individuals I'd worked with previously leaned on the trust of knowing me, having worked with me. That, in quote, public profile helped initially, because then people are like, you know what, things can't go wrong, or this individual can't just disappear or go anywhere because we know who he is. But from that, we just grew through word of mouth. We haven't done no huge marketing campaigns or advertising campaigns. The organizations we worked with told other organizations of the work we were doing or how they found our services and how they found working with the staff in Ghana. And that's how we grew over the next few years, really rapidly, just through organizations telling other organizations of the work we were doing. And we've just grown since then. We ourselves haven't received any investment today. We've bootstrapped the business today, and we are looking for the right strategic partners and individuals that can help us to grow at a later stage. But today we've bootstrapped the business, and it's been fantastic because we've been able to grow a really strong core business model through our knowledge and our expertise and getting the right people on board and being really careful about how we spend our money.
Yes.
That's helped us really, really massively in our early stages. And now that we've done that and we've got that really core structure in place, we've got a core team in place, and we know the steps we need to take to grow the business, on the next stage where we do receive our funding or we do partner with the right individuals, right organizations, and take things to another level, we will see immense growth.
Amazing. That's extremely impressive that you've bootstrapped and you've managed to achieve so much.
Yeah, it's not been easy. It's not been easy.
I can imagine.
But we've got there and we'll continue to do great things.
Brilliant. Well done, Samuel. So sticking to the theme of, say, challenges, did the pandemic or the current global economic downturn have an impact on the growth or operations of Remoteli?
Yeah, the pandemic was actually... obviously, despite it being, unfortunately, a horrendous time internationally with, obviously, COVID and the impact it had on people's lives and families, and that was horrendous in regards to the impacts it had. But in regards to an opportunity for our business, it was fantastic because during that period, a lot of organizations prior to COVID did not have internal structures in place where they were actually set up to build international teams. And most organizations didn't really consider, again, when you look at some industries, especially in the IT sector, them working remotely has been something that they've done all the time anyway. So there was nothing new to them. But to other core industries, it's not something that they'd really done previously. So the pandemic got many organizations, if not all organizations, to rethink their strategies and how they would operate with remote models. And in that happening, that's when we came into play, because organizations like, hold on, if we're catering to international audiences and we have such diverse clients and we are trying to grow international teams and change different lines, again, with diversity comes different lines of thoughts and getting individuals around the table who can really challenge the status quo and help grow the organization. Why haven't we tapped into Africa yet? And that's where we came in. And when these organizations then started working with us and they saw how diverse makeup of their teams changed, they saw the different lines of thoughts, they saw how competent these young people were, they saw the level of input and work and that was being put in, it really helped to change the narrative. And through that, we saw a lot of growth. So the pandemic was actually great. And then post-pandemic, where we actually thought we would see a huge drop-off in regards to the organizations that work with us, because we thought once the pandemic had slowed down and organizations would kind of go back to the office space and they would revert back to what they were previously. That did not happen. If anything, our business has increased since then because we found that organizations have now seen that there's a way to grow your businesses and reduce your overhead costs, but by getting staff members who are equally as competent as wherever your head office is, UK, America, parts of Europe, I don't know, parts of South America, you can grow your businesses equally as well with staff members from Africa. So it's actually helped change mindsets of people and change the narrative in regards to how you can grow your business internationally.
Thank you for that. So you've mentioned in terms of the pandemic generated a new understanding or trend of remote working or working remotely and growing a team. So sticking with the theme of trends, are there any trends in Africa's remote workforce space you're seeing that you're currently excited about?
When it comes to trends, I'd say yes, just because there's more understanding and knowledge of outsourcing and what people call the BPO industry here, staffing. Some of the main challenges previously were internet connectivity across the continent, but that's been addressed. It's getting a lot better. Internet connectivity is great. Another main issue was electricity in some parts of the continent, but for most parts, or many parts, let me say, that has been addressed and it's great in most parts of the continent. So a lot of the issues that were there previously that stops this level of growth aren't there now. And even in instances where they are there are so many ways to work around it that we found as an organisation that we're working to do to ensure that they're not hindrances to our growth. So they're the main trends, I would say, that we've seen as an organisation. And hopefully through that, there'll be loads more organisations like ours that will pop up around the continent and that will help to address the unemployment issues. Because like we've always said as an organisation, our goal is to get 1 million plus people into working opportunities. But there are over 100 million individuals who are out of employment across the continent. So Remoteli alone cannot be the one organisation to support all these individuals. So as long as a lot of these organisations are structured well, they have the right support systems in place, they can scale their businesses well, they can train these individuals properly, hopefully we'll see more organisations like Remoteli that can come onto the continent and really help to get more people into employment.
Brilliant. So if we go from current trends and I guess look at the future, where do you see Africa's remote workforce space, the space that you're operating in, where do you see it in, say, 5 years' time?
I can only see it growing. And it's just due to the work of organisations like Remoteli, where we're showing organisations around the world how it's done and how it can be done. So through us pretty much pioneering the space and bringing new technologies into play within the organisation, doing things differently, doing things in a way that other organisations around the world have never done things. Things can only increase and become better. And hopefully more organisations will look at our models, will copy our models, will use our models as a foundation to build off. And through that, the remote working space will only increase, will only get better, will only go from strength to strength. And it's important that it does, because through that, it just creates so many more opportunities. The truth is, if the opportunities were here, then there wouldn't necessarily be a need for organisations like ours. But the opportunities, in most part, aren't really on the continent like that. And the opportunities that are available internationally, there are so many vacancies for software developers. There are so many vacancies for technical roles internationally that can't be filled in these organisations all countries around the world, which is why they're looking abroad to see where they can fill these vacancies. And the people on the continent are here. So if we can create vehicles, we create platforms that will easily connect these individuals on the continent with these organizations and opportunities around the world, it's key and it's important and it's needed. So hopefully we'll see more organizations who are able to build and structure the organizations in a way where they can really help support people and close the unemployment gap.
Thank you for that, Samuel. So looking closer to home, you mentioned getting 1 million people in work. I guess in addition to that, where do you see yourself and Remoteli in 5 years' time?
Well, in 5 years' time, we have huge aspirations and goals as a business. We see us being pretty close to what we've foreseen. We see us having branches or offices across Africa, growing our core teams, working towards becoming a unicorn on the continent, which is another goal of ours. But each year that goes past, we see us getting closer, and it's mainly because of the people we have in our team. I believe that we have one of the best teams in Africa, and it's not just me being a overly enthusiastic or happy CEO. We see that through the growth we've had, and we see that through the innovation we do. We see that through the level of success we've had and consistency we've had over such a long period of time with no funding. And we know that over the next 5 years, we'll only go from strength to strength. And we know that this industry, which is so needed, will only continue to grow. So we just want to continue to be pioneers of that. We want to ensure that we continue to support people across the continent into getting into roles, but at the same time, supporting organizations around the world. There are, I believe it's 5 million plus businesses, private limited businesses in the UK alone. And if you're then looking at organizations then around the world, there are hundreds of millions of businesses that are growing, that need support, that need individuals to help them to grow. So why not Africa be that place where they can tap into the talent on the continent, grow their businesses with competent and skilled and knowledgeable individuals, and grow their teams in a way where it's diverse and can cater to your international audiences. So I believe Africa is that next place that can really help to take organizations around the world to another level.
I agree, Samuel. Fantastic.
Quote of the week.
As people, we often have quotes, mantras, African proverbs, or affirmations that keep us going when times are challenging or when times are good. Do you have one that you can share with us today?
One phrase that I coined when I was at college is a life well lived is a life that helps others to live. And it's something that we really believe in, and it's one of our core values within Remoteli. It's all about helping and supporting people, because you can attain and do everything you want to attain and do in this world, but at one point you have to look back and really see the impact you've made. And we want to ensure we leave a lasting legacy and impact and really help people to live lives to their fullest. And hopefully through our work and through the commitment we have in organisation, through the things we implement, we can really, really, really help to transform lives on the continent and build an organisation that will stand the test of time, that will be here in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 plus years when we're long gone, that an organisation that will still be here, still supporting people, still helping to change lives and create opportunities. So yeah, a life well lived is a life that helps others to live is what I live by.
I like that. It is about community working together, very much in the African spirit. So yes, thank you for sharing that with us. A great way to come to the close of today's conversation. So I was wondering, do you have any closing remarks, final calls to action for people who are interested in the work that you are doing at Remoteli?
Yeah, first of all, keep listening to these podcasts. They're amazing in regards to opening the eyes of what's happening on the continent, and in regards to Remoteli. If you're interested in either joining an organisation, looking for a job, please jump to our website, either remoteli.co.uk or remoteltalent.com, either one. Come onto our site, look for our careers pages, and please apply and see what opportunities would be available for you. And on the other side, if you're an organisation looking for highly skilled, competent, talented staff members to help take your organisation to another level, whether you're looking for software developers, recruitment assistants, legal assistants, finance assistants, social media managers, you name it, we've got them. Jump onto remoteli.co.uk or remoteltalent.com and browse through our site. look for the services you require and sign up. And we're more than happy to help you support your business grow to another level.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That has been a wonderful conversation. You're doing some amazing work, making extremely positive impact inside and outside of Africa. It's clear that you're offering something timely and much needed on the continent that has potential for huge exponential growth. And I look forward to seeing you achieve big things in the near future, Samuel. Thank you for joining me today.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you to everyone who has listened and stayed tuned to the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, or tell a friend about it. You can also rate, review us in Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcast. Thank you and see you next week for the Unlocking Africa podcast.